Okay, part two of the three-part video on the Solutreans. Okay, now the Goths, the Vandals, the Jutes, the Angles, the Saxons, the Franks, the Vandals. What are that's it. Ostrogoths, Visigoths, and Goths. It just means Western Goths and Eastern Goth. And the Huns. Oh yeah, the Huns. The Huns came from Mongolia, by the way. These people, the Angles, those are the English. Anglo-Saxons is that's what we call the English today, the Anglo-Saxons, Jutes, and the Frisians. You know what the difference between these groups and the Franks were? Nothing. They were Germanic peoples. One used the sax, the other used the Franciscus, which was a throwing axe. And they all came from Scandinavia, and this is a little bit before, this migration ended about 200 years before the Vikings. So these people were essentially the same as the Vikings. They came down, raped, pillaged, and plundered. They actually committed genocide in Britain and reduced the population to zero, basically. And basically sent it back into the Stone Age. I mean, didn't retain a single piece of Roman technology, writing, their religion, nothing. Just genocide, basically. The Visigoths fared better, and so did the Vandals. They were pagans and Arians, and they kept Carthage and Rome running fairly well. The Huns were like a terrible biker gang that as soon as their leader died, they kind of just ended up doing nothing. But yeah, modern day France and England, these people come from Denmark, Sweden, Frisia, in northern Germany. Same with the Vandals and the Goths. They were terrible barbarians. When the Latins of Italy, Spain, and Portugal, although Spain and Portugal didn't exist yet, it was Hispania. The Iberians, some people say Iberian, but also the Iberians also over here. These olive-skinned people were being raided by these blonde-haired, blue-eyed savages. So, yeah, nobody's really from anywhere originally. I mean, the damn Huns came from Mongolia. You can even see it in their eyes. Let's go back a little bit further. Oh yeah, most of Europe was Celtic, not a very warlike people. And the Germanic tribes, yep, they were stuck up here. They weren't in any of these places right here where like Austria, Switzerland, most of Germany. No, the Germanic tribes were, Sweden, Denmark, Finland. And the Celts were in Britain, Ireland, the Gauls, that's the Celts. There was no Franks down there. The Franks and the Anglos were still part of the Germanic tribes. And the Celtic tribes were here, all across here. And then this Roman lake here was ruled by the Latins and the Greeks and some Carthaginians. And where are the Turks? Because Anatolia is all Greek. The Turks would have been Huh. Where would the Turkic people be? Oh. Oh, sorry. No. Here. This span here, which had a common language, that's where the Turks would have been. Yeah. So, yeah, they did not come from Turkey. Oh, yeah, also at this time, most of Japan was Caucasian, Aryan, white people, whatever you want to call it. This is 200 BC. But you know who had a kingdom? The Axumites. These people. They were Jewish at this time. Mm-hmm. All right, moving on. That's what the 14th century looked like. You had Aquitaine. Didn't they speak Occitan then? I think they spoke Occitan. And then here you have Navarre, right down there, which is where the Basques lived. And what is this nonsense? What year is this supposed to be? Oh, it's the Roman Empire. Here are the Berbers, who weren't black or Arab. They actually had blonde hair and blue eyes. Don't tell anybody, though. It's our little secret. Oh, and there's Britain. There's no English people there. All the Anglo-Saxons and Franks, they're over here. This is Celtic, or Romano-Celtic, I should say. Again, the Gauls, those are Celts. Celtic tribes, Germanic tribes. These are all part of the Baltic peoples. But I think we went through this again. So when we get to the Solutreans, right? See? Their DNA group comes from Europe. And they're mostly dying out now. There's only about 3,000 of them left, but Hokkaido, Japan, and the Japanese know this, that what we know as Japanese, that look comes from Okinawa. And they moved forward and they committed genocide against the indigenous people of Nippon, which we would see as white, Aryan, Caucasians. Now, if you know anything about Japanese history or culture, genocide is not a bad thing. I mean, just look at the rape of Nanking, the Bataan Death March, the attempted genocide of the Chinese and the Filipino people. So, there's very few of them left, but the problem is that whenever they dig up bones that are a few thousand years old in the United States, they have to be turned over to the local tribe. Well, no single tribe is where it was 400 years ago or 1,000 years ago. Not a single one. Just like I said in the video before, the Cherokee used to live along the coast until around the time of Christopher Columbus, when the Powhatan drove them up into the mountains. And then that son of a bitch, Andrew Jackson, forced them on a trail of tears to Oklahoma. So where is their land? The Sioux. The land that the Sioux now, that the government now has given to the Sioux, or says this is the Sioux territory, was stolen from the Comanche. Just like any other group of people on the face of the earth, they stole land. And but there's plenty of photographs of Native American tribes where you're like, wait a minute, those very European-looking Native Americans, and these idiots, ancient alien people, try to say, oh, the Welsh made it here, or the Celts made it here. No, it was the Solutreans. There were two massive migrations from Europe that made it. You had one that happened around this time, which was the first, which came from here. And remember, this is at a time when Europe didn't have any, there's no people there. So the what's known as the Aryan Caucasian, it's why it's called Caucasian is because the Caucasus Mountains right here. Once they filled up this part, they just went across that ice shore and came over here and then populated. And then you had, this is the later one, this is the Clovis people, which came from central Siberia. Again, people aren't necessarily where their DNA develops or where their genetic traits develop isn't necessarily where they're located today. So this is where the almond-shaped eyes and stuff like that come from, right? And that took over. And they took over because they were more hostile. And then here is the intermittent one, the one that was right before the Clovis, right? And look where the they came from here. So we know they made it over by boat to here. And we think that we find Celtic words in the Amazon basin, so we think that there's a third migration. Now keep in mind, this is all Aryan right here. From southern India to Ireland is all one group. The facial reconstruction is the same. They're all Aryan Caucasian. So yeah, the Native Americans are a mixture of a bunch of different people. And again, they're not showing it on here, but there's the Australo-Aboriginal people that lasted in Argentina until they were wiped out by the Clovis people, because the Clovis people were a lot more hostile than the Austral Aboriginal people or the either groups of the Solutreans. So that's it. And it can be proven through DNA and archaeology. And it's ridiculous that some people, and there's the proof right there. And there's the Clovis tips. It's ludicrous that people think that it's racist to bring this up, as if people with Caucasian features made it to the New World first. Well, as I just showed you, they're not modern-day Europeans, and modern-day Europeans didn't live in Europe at that time. Hell, the French were living in Sweden, and so were the Anglo-Saxons. Ludicrous. People are getting offended for no reason. So that's part 2 of the Solutreans and the Clovis. Peace to you.